What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and bringing another little nugget to add to the Soul Tribe archive. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Mars and Scorpio in the third house. And this is a pretty cool place for Mars to be. Now, when you talk about Mars, the nature of Mars is to energize and for us to express our desires and our passions, and to find the courage to face our fears. You know, Mars really does bring this sort of like taking life, just coming at life just head on. Mars is a circle with the arrow, the will in motion. But I find, in traditional astrology, Mars was known as the lesser malefic. So, and I find where Mars can stir up some trouble is when we are like kind of suppressing those desires, or like kind of like keeping those needs kind of bottled up in things. And then what happens is they come out as aggression, they come out as whatever that might look like. So that's when the more kind of like less constructive qualities of Mars there. So that's something that you want to pay attention to, especially if you have a day chart. That's whereas if you have a night chart, this one's could be really, really dope for you up too. Now, when you talk about Scorpio, the reason why Mars is doing so well here, because in traditional astrology, this is a sign that Mars rules, or one of the signs that Mars rules. And Scorpio is the fixed water sign, and they are receptive or yin in nature. And when you think about Scorpio as a water sign, they hold their water within. The Scorpio, and it's a venom that they have. So it's this concentrated form of liquid. And but when you think about Scorpio, I'm just talking about the energy in general. There is this deep intuition that comes with Scorpio. Very strong emotions too. But I find that Scorpio really they're the alchemists. They're able to take, because with that poison, that same toxin can be used as medicine to cure that. So they are able to move through emotions very well, especially with Mars being here. And I find that again, they can sense the energies moving on a really deep sort of level. And there's a real strength and a real loving energy I find with Scorpio energy. So yeah, there's just some things to think about with that placement. And then you think about the third house. This in traditional astrology was known as the house of the goddess. There's a spiritual aspect with this house for sure, but it's a very busy house, one of the Caden houses. And some of the themes that this house is going to cover are going to be like your siblings, your relatives, friends, neighbors, your neighborhood, your immediate environment. This is like short-term travels, like your commute. This can deal with like writing, speech, communications, any sort of media, any sort of like information that's going around there. And then this can also get into sort of like religious rites, or kind of like sacred rites, religious observations, or even like divination and like oneiromancy, doing like dream work and things along those lines. So when you're working with this placement, a couple things to think about. You'd have a Virgo rising by a whole sign, and you have to look far to see who controls this house, because Mars lives here. So this is where so Mars is going to rule this house and your eighth house, which the themes that those house covers, they'll flow to this house, which would deal with like your inheritances, or any sort of like shared resources, debts, or there's even a cult side in a cult side to the eighth house. But this will also deal with like death, and as far as like mortality, maybe the fears, anxiety behind that, things along those lines. So when we're working with this placement, if I was talking with someone about this, I would say, this could be someone, especially with that Scorpio energy. I would explore any sort of dream work, especially if you find yourself who is a very active dreamer. Understanding if you could really get to a place where you have a deep relationship with your dreams, I mean, that's a great place to be. You may even find yourself where you could do even sort of like some sort of lucid dreaming, or possibly like that, like whatever that might look like. I would say look into that, maybe having your dreams interpreted, or you maybe even interpreting dreams, and that might be something that you just a skill that you can share alone, because there is again a very mystical side when you talk about the third house, and even in the eighth house there. So that's just one thing that I would consider there. This could be too, just having an active participation in your just like your community. You know, if you have siblings, what does that relationship look like? Is there very active, you know, how is that relationship energized, and how your relationships with others, and think about that again, that shared resources comes into play. So thinking about that reciprocity, how you give versus to how you receive, and how that's going there. Because again, I could see this as building a very not just like a huge community, but even just more so just like a really tight community with Scorpio there. I could think there could be some really deep bonds which will benefit everyone in the long term. I mean, you know, you get to a place where you just know your neighbors, you can go over there for dinner, go out, you're hanging out, you can count on them to like watch stuff for people. So this, and then vice versa, you know, it helps to have that community support, could be really great for that. You know, considering that this too is a very kind of like communicative house, writing and speech, that's another thing that I would explore. Maybe you like to do like poetry, maybe you do some sort of writing in some like maybe fiction, nonfiction, whatever, playwrights, you know, something where you're sharing this with like the community, sharing this with others, you know, thinking about what you want to leave behind and what you need to learn in order to make that vision happen. But I could see this Mars and Scorpio being very creative, very prolific, you know, I think as well. Maybe being able to channel emotions and pull, you know, people have these very poignant experiences as well, depending on what that looks like. But maybe you're doing some sort of like social media type of thing where you're making videos or whatever that might look like. You know, maybe you do music, however that does. Maybe you involve even involved maybe in some sort of like law, maybe, or maybe some sort of like civil servant or something along those lines. I think could be some areas to explore as well. And just, you know, probably just being on the move, getting out and being active in your community, walking around your neighborhood. I think that could be something. Or maybe like riding a bike, something where you're just kind of out and about and just kind of exposing. That can keep the energy moving, especially maybe if you're feeling like just like a lot needing to move through some things. Maybe you talk with someone around there while you're going on like a neighborhood walk or something along those lines. That might be something there. Maybe even just like taking little trips and things like on a train or something could do you well. Maybe like have like a relationship with driving, just like to hop on the road, maybe just to go for a day trip somewhere. Or those little trips could probably do some nice kind of things. Really see what goes on around in your environment too. You know, I think any sort of like festivals and things like that, I think could be a really fun way to explore this placement. Now, I will say too, just considering that there is that third house with that eighth house thing. Again, that reciprocity, I think, is something, especially amongst the family, friends, even neighbors and things. If there, where I could see where Mars could get a little riled up, is if there are, yeah, just pay attention to that. If there's anyone that maybe are taking an advantage, or if there are any sort of like manipulations or things along those lines, kind of keep an eye on that. That Mars and Scorpio, they can sense when something's off, you know, and where the energy's not flowing, where when it feels like there's like a threat there or something along those lines. So that might be just something to pay attention to as well. How's that relationship with the siblings, considering too that the inheritance things is going to get involved there. And not that you just do these things so that we just get stuff, but you know, like we want to just be able to keep things together, you know, like, and it's not your job to keep the family together, but maybe that might be a responsibility that you feel really heavy on. You feel like no one else is doing this work, so that might be a thing that you might work through too. And have someone that you, if you are considering that Mars rules that eighth house too. Just one last thing, having ways to communicate any sort of feelings, again, especially if you have any sort of like recurring dreams or anything along those lines. But just having someone where you can, like a therapist or something, if you need to have different things that you're working through. Maybe there's some sibling issues, some family issues, maybe that you're maybe working through, whatever that might look like for you. You may find yourself doing the reverse, whatever that might look like. But those are just some rough things that I would talk about with someone with this placement. You definitely need the whole chart to get a better picture of this. But if you have this placement or know someone who's working with this placement, down in the comment section, tell us how this is manifested for you. What are some things or what are maybe some things that this had you think about? And if you like the way that I talk about these placements and want to learn more about the astrology and just get more into explore different cycles and explore your chart and see how that's manifest, see what transits are affecting you, what are some things to look forward to, what are some intentions that you can set and things. Down in the description box is a link to get in touch with me. It has my email down there, so yeah, definitely feel free to reach out with me. We'll discuss what services I have and go from there. And then, look at that, building your community. And then if you want to just pay attention to what transits are going on in the sky right now, see what signs the planets and the sun are in. Then on this channel as well, I do weekly videos that come out every Mercury day, and they're discussing just that, where the planets are at and how you can look to see what planets are aspecting what and all those good things. And then, last thing, if you want to work with the moon, there's a link for my other channel, The Chariot and Friends, where I release videos every time the moon changes signs. And I talk about what phase she's in when she's going void of course, and do a I Ching and a tarot card reading in there as well. So all sorts of mysticism for you. But until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep raising that vibration through the roof. And I will catch you on the next one. Later.